Alright, so in addition to our fuel issues, we still have a persistent starting problem, even though I've replaced the starter motor and it was completely unchanged. I suspect my other starter motor was fine, and I'm the one that boned it because I tightened down this strap right here and twisted that right there, and I know that that goes to 2 copper wires inside, and as they twisted, one of them bent, touching the rotor inside, shorting out the whole mess. So a friend of mine actually just showed up. He said he had this on his shelves. He got it decades ago, bought it in '94, and he says, this is what he knows. This is all he knows about it. It says rebuilt starter, Cummins, bought 1994. But he says he's not going to use it, so he gave it to me. As to why mine isn't doing its thing. Here's my theory. The military has a spacer. It's an aluminum spacer. It's about 1/4 inch thick. Now my old pump had a thick paper gasket on this face, a thick paper gasket on the back face of the spacer. My new starter didn't have that gasket, and the guys was actually quite surprised when I told them this, that my old one did have a gasket, but I couldn't get it off. I'm thinking that maybe, right, because that big solenoid hits it and this thing comes slamming out like a sledgehammer. I'm wondering, is if possible, my starter is simply too close to the motor because I don't have that extra gasket. And because it's too close to the motor, this plunger goes slamming out, but it can't go far enough to trigger the contacts that would actually drive the power to the motor. So this one's a little sticky, but what are you gonna do? Complain about a free one? So, anyways, my thought on that one tomorrow. Somebody had mentioned maybe it needs to wear in. I will say that it has the problems have been less and less frequent. I was going to try tomorrow. If I start having troubles with it, I found that I can get it started by tapping on that point, the pivot of the Bendix. I can get it started by tapping on that, but I thought that I might crack the bolts loose, and so just the starter just wiggles, just barely wiggles, and then if all the starting problems go away, that would indicate that maybe I do need an extra spacer in there. I know that in a lot of old Chevys, you used to have to shim the starters back in order to get the proper throw. Has anybody ever heard of shimming back a heavy truck starter? I'm afraid that we are just full of questions and very, very few answers. And it has been a long and frustrating 4 days. I've ended up refunding, I don't know, $120. I guess it's not that much. Of course, I didn't operate today, and I turned down a 7-person charter, so there's 140 right there. So basically the cost of a starter I've already lost. It's just been a long one. This truck is being just a bit of a princess. Like the other one we ran last year, it had come out of storage into a private party, and the guy drove it around in parades, and maybe he just had already worked through all of this nonsense. And more or less, I got this one straight from GL, and then I drove it, 290 miles home with no problems. And then I drove it 290 miles here with no problems. But that act of driving it every single day, maybe it's shaking loose all the little gremlins from sitting. So Once again, starter experts. You ever heard of shimming them back? It is. I've tested everything. The solenoid is actuating. I can hear it, feel it, wham, hitting. But the starter's not drawing any current at all. Not a whisper of current. So those contacts are not being closed, which is exactly what the old starter was doing, and that was in beautiful shape. And it's exactly what the new starter is doing, and it's new. So the problem has got to be somewhere else. And I was just wondering if anybody thought it might have something to do with being shimmed out.